I don't wanna sit in a get with you, baby, tonight. I don't wanna love, I don't wanna fight. I don't wanna have to tell you all the things I know. I don't wanna stay, but I don't wanna go. I don't wanna be the lover in your arms. I don't wanna be the one to keep you from home. I don't wanna be the crooked person in your heart. I don't wanna stop, but I don't wanna stop. Part-time lover, how we suffer now. I don't wanna waste no more of your precious time. I don't wanna say that everything will be fine. I don't wanna feel your tears on my skin. I'm a coward, baby, don't let me in. Part-time lover, how we suffer now. So I don't wanna sit in and get with you, baby, tonight. I don't wanna love, I tell you all the things I know. I don't wanna stay, I don't wanna go. I am a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world of war. There is no sickness, toil nor danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. And I know dark clouds will gather round me, and I know my way is rough and steep, but golden fields stretch out before me, where weary eyes no more will weep. I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I'm going there to see my brother. He said he'd meet me when I come. hush, little darling, don't say a word. I'm gonna buy you a mockingbird. Say, darling, say. And if that mockingbird don't sing, I'm gonna buy you a diamond ring. Yes, and I know that diamond ring. Yes, I know that diamond ring is gonna shine. Darling, if you'll marry me, I'll buy you a house with a big oak tree. Say, darling, say, we'll live in the house with the big oak tree. 3 little babies on your knee. Yes, and I know that diamond ring. Yes, I know that diamond ring is gonna shine. So hush, little darling, don't say a word. I'm gonna buy you a mockingbird.
Good day, this is Thumbnails United. We're doing our creative stream, our weekend creative stream, where we're editing the footage and photographs for the California project. Yesterday we finished editing all the 35mm photographs. So now we are going to be editing the footage. I have 2 3D cameras. One is the JVC 3D camera, and the other is the GoPro 3D system. And I say system because it's really 2 cameras kind of glued together. So let's get to work. So this is Northern California. This is pretty close to Big Sur, and there's a kind of like a pit stop area where they have a little reserve, and the elephant seals will come and lay on the beach. It's fenced off, so you can't get to them, but you can see them, and it's pretty funny because they're really loud. They go brah, but it's like this really extremely low frequency. It's not even a growl or a roar, it's more like a belch. And yeah, and it's funny because when they do it, they open their mouths and they have kind of the snuffleupagus, the nose. It's more like a flap. We'll see in a second. But it, just this, you know, this almost smoke, this fog comes out of their mouth because of the temperature distance. It's like condensation, but it's not like when we breathe out of our mouth. Because it's like a steady layer of smoke, condensation. And it's funny, I've been here. See, here are the elephant seals. I've been here in 2004, 2000 and I think this is 2014. I was so tired when I woke up. Oh man, we're in for a treat. Sploosh! I hope you got some good food. That might be a cormorant. The bird. I don't know why I woke up so tired. I didn't go to bed early, but it wasn't that late. Where it was 3 in the morning again. My mom says that I skipped a few steps. Her theory is I'm really an old person. And she says I skipped over being young adult / middle-aged person, and now I'm just an old person. She's like, now I'm at the stage of my life where I'm just an insomniac. And it's kind of true, but it's not. Like, there are times when my insomnia is like really bad, to the point where it's just like I almost pass out randomly. But I haven't been that way in a while. And the good news is that yesterday, my Journey into Italy animations had finished. And so there's 2 sets of projects. Or one is the digital photography, and that's shot in 4K. Not shot in 4K, the megapixels are what is the word? The photographs are shot in 18 and 10 megapixels, and so that's above 4K, so I'm able to animate them, and the photographs are actually downscaled during the animation into 4K because they're higher resolution than the project, and that's what you want. You don't really want upscaling. Upscaling is not too good. You can upscale a little bit, but It's better if you don't. Downscaling is great because it blends pixels together, and it usually creates a more clean image because it blends the pixels together. And then this trip happened mainly because my sister was she was graduating high school, and I think was filmed in winter. It was like it was a Christmas vacation, holiday vacation, and yeah, my grandmother and extended family live in California, so while we were there, we decided to drive up north. And then these are the elephant seals. And like, they have quite the blubber. Like, it jiggles and wiggles and all kinds of things. I mean, when they move, they look like, just like Jello. But it's incredible because, they're actually really big. Like, I'm 6 feet, but they're longer than me. And they weigh hundreds of pounds, like 300, 400 pounds. And they are meant to be in water. And so when they're on land, see? You can see them starting to jiggle. And so when they're on land, they essentially do the worm, where they just flop. As they don't really try to get too far away from the water, but you can tell they're on the beach, and they all stay together to kind of stay warm. These two are getting into a fight. It's actually unusual. I made my first cup of coffee this morning at 10. And then usually I'll take a break while I'm streaming and make the second cup. But by like 10:50, I was like, that first batch did not wake me up. And like, I was gonna fall asleep setting up the stream. That's how tired I was. But I made the second cup, and that's I feel better. It's actually worse than that. I say cup, but I actually make a small pot of coffee. So it's 2 cups. So I had 2 cups, and then I had another 2 cups of coffee. So hopefully it kicks in soon. Oh man, here they are. of getting angry. He says, "I'm trying to sleep. Don't wake me up." And one of them moves and they all have to get comfortable again. And like, it's, you think California, you think it's so warm, but it's kind of cool. It's cool and comfortable in Northern California. So, like, it's in the 70s and 60s a lot of the time. In summer it gets hotter, gets to the 90s, but it's not like Southern California where it gets to 105 or 101 in the summertime. And then in winter, it's funny because my extended family will text me and they're like, "Oh, it's so cold, it's 80 degrees." And so in Michigan, it's like -5. No joke, literally -5. And we're like, "You guys are complaining about 80-degree weather in January?" And I kind of understand it because when I lived in California, I lived in the desert area, and part of the time, and the other part I lived in Los Angeles. But when at nighttime it does get very cold, or what feels to be cold, where it will get to 60s or 50s. And then in the morning it will still be cold. You almost have frost on your windshield, and that was the annoying thing. Because I had a commute to do, and so then you drive and the steering wheel's frozen and everything. And so you wear a sweater, like I wore a sweater in the morning. And then, by 11 o'clock it tricks you. It's, it's 90, and then by 2 p.m. it's 100. So it's not very nice. But even with all that heat, California is kind of the coldest place because everyone there, they use the air conditioner to the extreme. Like literally to the extreme. And people, not from California, that's kind of their biggest gripe, because yeah, it's so hot outside, but then you're frozen when you go into any building, and they keep it at like 55 degrees in the building. It's like, oh my goodness. Almost to the point where when I wear glasses, and so it's almost to the point where you're working inside a building. Like I would work in the media production lab, and then you get out and your glasses fog up from the temperature difference. Okay, we're done with this section. This project right here was just the elephant seal part, and it's actually the last part of the JVC footage. There was significantly more footage, but it was mainly just family videos. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a color grade. I kind of do a generic color grade where one setting can apply to most of the project. I used to, color grade each clip, but I found a new way to do it where it's easier. Most of the settings I do in camera. If I didn't do most of the white balance and stuff in camera, then it would be difficult. And I'd have to go clip by clip. But so it's mainly just kind of brighten the image. And then we check. Whoa! And so we're gonna have to make some changes. There, and that's much better. Much better. It's funny, my grandmother told the story where she had this one dog, and well, it's actually, there's two stories, but she had this one dog, and she said it would just sleep all the time, and so she said she just called it Lump because it would just lump around. And the other story is I'm gonna switch projects. But the other story is that she got this one dog, and then let's say, I don't know, let's say its name was Mike, and then her sister got another dog. Let's say the dog's name was like James or something. And so my grandmother actually married someone whose name was James. And then, so it was the name of her sister's dog. And then her sister actually married someone who, I already forgot the fake name I gave the other, but she married someone with the same name as my grandmother's dog, so that was funny. So there's significantly more to edit on the next one. The next one we have the California Science Center. It's taking a little bit longer to load. And then this is the GoPro footage. So you're gonna see a lot of my face, because when you're shooting with the GoPro, the little indicator LCD is on the front. So to make sure it's recording, you have to look, into the camera. So almost all of the clips start with a clip of me looking into the camera. And you can set it where the GoPro lights up, and it has a light on the back, I believe on the bottom and on the top and in the front, that will blink red. But you never you want to make sure that it's recording, how long it's been recording. So if you don't want to click record and then find out you've actually accidentally been recording for like 5 minutes. this even bigger. So this is California Science Center. It's in LA. It's a really nice museum. A lot of mainly aerospace stuff, but they have some really cool exhibits on transportation, on the human body. There's this exhibit called Tess, and it's really interesting because it's like a giant robot. When I was a kid, the robot I thought was enormous, and when I went to see the exhibit in later on, I was like, oh, it's not that big. I mean, it's big. She's like 15, 20 feet long, but she's this robot that is modeled after a human, but her chest is open so you can see her heart and her stomach and muscles and lungs and everything. And it's interesting because they do some simulations and they show, oh, you know, when you're playing soccer, this is the part of the body that activates, and then essentially her innards start lighting up and everything, and they show you why you do different heart rates and all that. So it's a really educational part, and the best thing about it is that it's free admission. And so if you're ever in Los Angeles, you should go to the California Science Center. They also have, I believe it's the Endeavour, the space shuttle, and I think you have to pay for that, but it's inexpensive. It's around $5 per ticket. And then they also have a very nice IMAX theater, but with actual IMAX. A lot of times in movie theaters they say they have IMAX, but it's actually, yes, it technically is IMAX, but it's a generic version. I mean, it's certified IMAX, but it's not like huge. And this is, a lot of times the museum IMAX is the original standard of IMAX, which is a lot bigger, a lot more sound, and so they have an actual IMAX theater, which is huge, and then they have science movies that play there, and they're pretty good. And they have a lot of 3D stuff, actual 3D. So I highly recommend, if you go there to see a movie in the IMAX theater, those you have to pay for, and then get a ticket for the Endeavour. But if you don't want to do that, the museum is very good and stands alone. Okay, I had it sneeze, and it was weird because it was just a single one. So I believe this is a brain. And here they're showing a neuron, I believe. That's a neuron. And that's one of those clips of nothing. I'm gonna try to go faster. So this is the part I was telling you about. This is Tess. You can kind of see her head. And this is actually the entrance of the California Science Center. So when you enter, they have all the escalators going up to the exhibits, and here's the Endeavor. And on the upper floor, they actually have all the photographs of them, transporting the Endeavor. And like it came through downtown LA, and they have the photos of all the trucks and everything. helicopter. This is their scuba robot. There's a deep sea section, and so they actually have this really cool aquarium. And a lot of times when you go there, they have a diver that goes down and he waves at you and all this stuff. But they have tons of fish, and then they have this underwater tunnel you go through. I believe I have footage from it. But they got all kinds of stuff in terms of fishes and marine animals. And then this section is the desert section. They have a whole wildlife, and they show different ecosystems and everything. And they actually have this one part of the exhibit that I tried to film, but they show you what it's like in the desert when there's the flash floods. And so it took me a long time to film because it's not random, but it takes about 5 to 8 minutes for the exhibit to do the flash flood again. And they kind of say it's because they have to pump all the water back into the tank, and that takes a while. You got a tortoise. He's going into his... Oh, he's coming out of his... He went into his igloo and now he's coming out. So I'm excited for the next project. The next project I'm working on offline. There are several projects I kind of do at the same time where I don't really take a break. So like I'm editing the California project, I'm live streaming, but then when I'm offline, I edit and animate other projects, and then it doesn't really stop. So when I took that break from Twitch, which ended up being a month break, I edited 3 projects, the video footage, and then one of the new series I'm going to be doing is a classical music series. where I have several composers, and it's piano music. What happens is I have the converted sheet music. The sheet music was converted to the MIDI format, and when you record, a lot of times when you record, the electric piano, the keyboard, in the software, it will go from a MIDI file, and then the whatever you're using to record, digitally record, will save that MIDI file, and then it will do the synthesizer over it, where it will put the sound of the piano. And so when you're doing it digitally and with a MIDI controller into the computer, it's just sending, I'm playing this note, I'm playing that note. It's not actually sending the sound to the computer. The computer is rendering the sound from from that note. So it's just like using a mouse and keyboard, where it just sends the signal and then the computer acts on it. Like the keyboard isn't actually copying and pasting the document, it's just telling the computer to copy and paste. And so that's what MIDI is. It's essentially just digital keyboard, literally piano keyboard, into the computer. And so that's what a MIDI file is. And what's cool about the MIDI file is, yes, you can record it as a piano, but then you can also change the different instruments. So if you're playing on the piano with the synthesizer, you can go back and say, I don't really like the sound of the piano. Let's see what it sounds like as if a cello was playing it. So you just change the setting after the fact, and then it will play each note with the cello sound. And what I've been getting into is FSZ files, which is, instead of doing it synthetically and having a synthetic piano sound, you can buy these packs, and there are some free ones where it's actual recorded instruments, and so it sounds really good. I have this one where it's a Steinway Model B, which is it's a really high-end piano. And what this university did is with the SFZ file or system, what they do is they record each note on, this is the flash flood I was talking about, but they record each note, the sound of each note. And so when the MIDI synthesizer, you use that setting, it's actually playing a sound file, not just a sample, the actual sound file of that note. And so it doesn't sound digital at all. It sounds like you're there with the piano. You even have the sound of the notes being pressed and the hammer on the strings. It's really good. And so I found this open source website that has classical music, the MIDI files, where they straight up converted the sheet music of people like Handel, Liszt, Chopin, Debussy, and Beethoven. Like, I have 16 or 20 classical composers, and I converted them using the MIDI system and the SFZ files, and converted them into this really high quality, realistic sounding essentially soundtracks. And so each composer is the minimum is really like an hour and a half of composed music. But like the bigger ones like Liszt and Debussy and especially Beethoven and Mozart, they're it's it's 4 or 8 hours of music. And so that's one of the projects I'm working offline, where it's travel photography and classical music, and I'm not ready to release it. This is the other thing I was talking about. Here you have the divers, and it's funny because you think, oh yeah, I'm gonna become a biologist and then I'm gonna go work at a museum and stuff with the scuba diving. And so what the scuba diver does is he actually goes around and he's cleaning the tank. And so the kids love it because they get to see him, and it's pretty cool. I took a class on scuba diving. I didn't get my license, not because I didn't pass the class, but because it was kind of poor planning, where I took the class in November. I live in Michigan, and that's important to the story. So I took the class in November, and the class, it was about 2 months. And so I took the class, and you do the tests in the pool, and the instructor has this really big pool that you go and you dive in. And so that was nice. And then I did pretty well, and diving is so incredible because it feels like you're in outer space, where you're just floating along. You do a little bit of effort and you kind of build up all this inertia, and you have your buoyancy pack, and so you can just hover in one place once you get the right buoyancy. So I really loved it. But because I took the class started in November, and it was about 2 months. It goes from November, December to January. And so once you pass the written test, which I took it with my sister and my mom, and we all passed, then you have to do the open water test, and it's something like 4 or 5 months after you complete the written test. And so that would mean we had to take it in in April or May, before our written test expired. And because we live in Michigan, in March, April, and even the beginning of May, we still get snow in April. And so the lakes where they do open water tests are still frozen or extremely cold. And so there's a form of diving that you can do with a dry suit and instead of a wetsuit. And what a dry suit does is it keeps you dry. It doesn't let any water in. And you would use that in if you're diving in the Arctic under ice sheets and stuff, because you wear sweaters and all this thermal stuff that can't get wet, and it keeps you warm. But that's not an option for that's for advanced diving. So you have to already have your diver's license, and then you have to get recertified for that. So that wasn't an option for us. And it wasn't like we didn't know that. I mean, the guy straight up told us. He's like, this will be difficult, because if you pass the test, see here we had the giant walkway. So if you pass the test, you might not be able to get your open water license if you're doing it in Michigan, because the lakes will still be frozen. And so a lot of times what you can do is you can take the course and then you can go anywhere else in the world. Like you can go to California and you just submit your papers saying you passed the course. You get a little certificate, and then you can take the Oprah water in California. A lot of times, what you can do is, like, if you're going to the Bahamas, they have it, like the diving. I mean, it's so standardized that if you're on vacation and let's say you're in the Bahamas, you can sign up for like a 3-day course, and it's the same course. Then you pass the test, then you do the open water, and then you can do the extra activities, and you get a real diver's license. So some divers, while they're on vacation, they learn how to dive during that vacation and get a scuba license. So, like I said, it's incredible. I really enjoyed diving. I'm planning on getting my license sometime, but not anytime soon. But I do free diving, and there are ways you can learn how to do free diving. It's mainly you learn kind of different techniques on how to breathe. A lot of people, they breathe with their upper chest. And so the secret to free diving is not only do you use your upper chest, the upper part of your lungs, but when you're breathing, you actually, you take in a lot of air, but you actually take in so much air that you can feel it pressing on your stomach. So your stomach, you really kind of, push your stomach out with, essentially with your lungs. And like that's how deep you have to breathe in. And then you just hold it. And part of you can hold your breath easily as a beginner for 3 minutes. I can go for 6 minutes after practicing. Which isn't that great. There are free divers who can hold it for 10-15 minutes, but it's really a mental thing, and I highly recommend you do not go in the water and try free diving. You need to practice, like practice at home, on land, outside of water, the free diving techniques before you do them in the water. But most of free diving is a mental thing, because your body is panicking, because it's like, I haven't gotten new air. You're nowhere close to suffocating, but your body is like kind of gets worried and anxiety, and your lungs. It's not a mental thing like a conscious mental thing. It's like a subconscious. Where your lungs are trying to get air, and it's like, why haven't I been breathing? And so they start to get panicked, and you'll actually start to feel pain in your lungs, and because it's not pain from lack of air. What it is it's kind of cramping because it's trying to breathe, even though you're not, you're holding your breath. And so around minute 2 or something, you'll start to feel, discomfort and stuff, but you're really fine. Again, this is why you practice, at home, not underwater. So you kind of know your limit and you just time. And then you get an idea how it is. And obviously when you're swimming, you're going to be using more oxygen that you have reserved in your lungs. So, if you're just sitting down and testing out free diving techniques, like maybe you get to, 5 or 6 minutes of holding your breath, but then when you're in water, it goes to like 3 minutes because you're moving around and everything. And so it's kind of scary because, like, I I use a weight belt, which is, exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially strapping, lead on a belt around your waist, and that makes you not. The goal is not to have it make you sink. The goal is to make you have neutral buoyancy. So a lot of people float when they go underwater. And so, like, if you're diving and you naturally float, especially if you wear a wetsuit, wetsuits will make you float even better. But if you floating, then to dive, you have to constantly be pushing yourself down. And so what a weight belt does is it actually it makes you neutral buoyant. It can make you sink to the bottom if you use it wrong. You're supposed to find the exact weight to make yourself neutrally buoyant. So you just stay where you are. So if you're at the surface, you stay at the surface. But if you dive and then stop, stop swimming, you're just gonna stay at that altitude underwater. You're not gonna sink anymore, but you're not gonna rise up to the surface. You just hover. And so that makes it a lot more easier. You don't have to work as hard to go underwater, but it is scary because, like I said, I'm free diving, and so you're like, when you want air, you actually look up because you're at the bottom of the ocean or the lake, and so you will actually look up, and it's like, oh my goodness, the surface of the water is so high up, and that alone will make you panic. And so then, you start swimming up and, kind of as fast as you can. And then you get air. So it is a little frightening. Especially because you always have to be conscious of how deep you're going, because you have to know how far up you have to go. But sometimes, you get down there and it's like, oh, I found this thing, found that thing. And you're slowly getting, deeper. Or a lot of times in the ocean, the ground slopes in some areas. So you might think, oh, it's flat, and you're just skimming along the bottom of the ocean, and then you look up and it's like, oh man, I actually went way deeper than I thought. And I have some dive videos coming out. There, the journey into the Philippines, that's coming out to Flotations. And then Project Aerospace is actually getting As Above, As Below, which is, like I said, diving feels very much like being out in outer space. And so, while there's a lot of flying and drone videos for Project Aerospace, we also have the weightless feeling of being underwater, and so that dive photography is going to be coming to Project Aerospace. I will have to check the calendar, but I believe it's coming in around August and September to YouTube. It comes out a month earlier on Patreon on the $2 level. But it trickles out to YouTube publicly, like I said, about a month later. All this water makes me have to go to the restroom. I said once I finish editing this, the water section may be done, but I think I'm gonna take a break. I'll be right back. Greeting and salutations. I am Lloyd, a producer at LCD Productions, and I have come to share this new series of visual audiobooks with you, the listener, the supporter, the viewer. Together we will go on a journey like never before, fly to new heights with Project Aerospace, explore new land and cityscapes with Photations, even change the dimension of time through the power of time-lapse photography from live to tape. We'll even travel beyond the mind's eye into worlds captured and generated through animation from Thumbs United daily animation series. As we together go on these journeys filled with photography and theater of the mind, I hope you remember the core belief that we hold, that anyone can become the master of art, meaning that it is not some born skill what makes someone good at being creative. It is a desire to practice and spend time being creative that creates the master. I hope that these films, photography, and stories inspire you to set some time aside and practice some creativity. I believe if we all spend more time creating and being constructive, the world would be a better place, a more friendlier and fulfilling place. Thank you for coming. Let's begin this journey. Thank you for experiencing this journey we have created here at LCD Productions. For more information on how to support these films and projects, visit photations.com/support. Fine art photography prints from journeys around the world can be purchased from photationsstore.com, and digital downloads of our photography and visual audiobooks is available for personal use. Commercial use is available at a different rate. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you here again.
Greeting and salutations. I am Lloyd, a producer at LCD Productions, and I have come to share this new series of visual audiobooks with you, the listener, the supporter, the viewer. Together we will go on a journey like never before, fly to new heights with Project Aerospace, explore new land and cityscapes with Photations, even change the dimension of time through the power of time-lapse photography from live to tape. We'll even travel beyond the mind's eye into worlds captured and generated through animation from Thumbs United daily animation series. As we together go on these journeys filled with photography and theater of the mind, I hope you remember the core belief that we hold, that anyone can become the master of art, meaning that it is not some born skill what makes someone good at being creative. It is the desire to practice and spend time being creative that creates the master. I hope that these films, photography, and stories inspire you to set some time aside and practice some creativity. I believe if we all spend more time creating and being constructive, the world would be a better place, a more friendlier and fulfilling place. Thank you for coming. Let's begin this journey.
Okay, I'm back. Time to party. Party hard. That's my sister peddling, generating the electricity. So now we're getting to the space section of the California Science Center. Spice! You know what, I'm gonna make it even. This is just a preview resolution. And the reason why it's all pixelated is because it's only rendering, 5% of 1080p. And I do that just because it's easier to edit. I don't have to. It's with the GoPro. And the GoPro has virtually infinity focus, where anything farther than 6 inches away from the GoPro will be in focus. And that's because it's a wide angle lens. But on top of being an ultra wide angle lens, it is also, here's the Endeavor. On top of being an ultra wide lens, the sensor size is extremely small. So the smaller the camera sensor, as a rule of thumb, in general, the depth of field will be wider, meaning everything will be in focus, or more things will be in focus. The larger the sensor size of the camera, or the larger the film, the smaller the depth of field. And so what's really nice about that, so 35mm is the standard for DSLRs, and so that is a, compared to a cell phone or a GoPro image sensor, that's huge. And so with 35mm you get it where it's very easy to get a lens and then have it where, let's say you're taking a picture of someone and it's very easy to have that picture have the person in focus, but then the background, slightly out of focus. When you pay for better lenses, and they actually call it, faster lenses or the speed of the lens, but that's really how wide open the aperture can go. And so, the smaller the f-stop, the wider open the lens aperture is. And so you have to pay big bucks if you want a lens to have an aperture of like 1.2, 1.8. It used to be impossible to get an aperture of just one. It usually had to be an aperture of at least 1.2. That was the lowest you can go. But somehow, I believe it's Sony, somehow they got some of their lenses to be an aperture of 1, which is kind of like, should be physically impossible. But really, the lowest you can buy is 1.2. A very inexpensive lens, because it is super easy to make and manufacture, is a 50mm lens. And so you can get, a used 50mm with an aperture of 1.8, which is still really good for $50. I actually bought one from my sister, aperture of 1.8. She had a 50mm of 1.2, which that's phenomenal and more expensive, but she had a 1.8, so I was like, I'll buy it. And even though I have a manual lens, I have an old 55mm lens with an aperture of 1.8. So even though I kind of had that lens, it's only manual focus, and my eyes aren't that great anymore. Where like before, I never used autofocus. Like, it could not be trusted. It was the devil, in my opinion, and real photographers don't use autofocus. Now, if you're filming, especially with a DSLR, you never use autofocus, because it doesn't work so well in video. Nowadays, the autofocus systems are significantly better and on DSLRs for video, but before they weren't. They were slow, they were chunky, and they could never focus on time. But like, I watched some of these YouTubers who use DSLRs for their camera, and they like move an inch, and the aperture is like 1.2. And so with apertures of like 1.2, you can get it to where your eye is in focus, but because your nose is closer to the camera, it's actually out of focus. And then your ear, which is further behind your eyeball, is out of focus as well. And so that's and so with so much being out of focus, it makes the things that are in focus extremely sharp, and it's really quite, the depth of field, or the broke, is it's one of the easiest ways to exponentially improve a photograph. The downside is it's difficult to get a hold of those lenses. So what I do is, a lot of times friends or family members or places where I work, they'll be throwing out lenses, and these will be like lenses for film cameras for companies that don't exist, or lens mounts that aren't common, so they have no real use. But if you search online, you can find lens adapters, and so I have like my high school, they gave the camera to this one kid, and he was like, "Why are you guys giving me this? Like, you should have given it to Lloyd," which is me. And so he took the camera, and then he literally walked from one end of the. He got it at this separate building at our high school, and so he walked from that building, and he literally gave it to me. He's like, "Here you go. They gave this to me, but I don't want it." And so it was a Mamiya Sector 35mm camera, fully manual. Like, you had to advance the film by winding. That thing was great. So great. So for a while I just shot on film with it. I got it working and everything, but it came with 3 lenses, 3 vintage lenses. It came with a 200mm with an aperture of 3.5, which is pretty good for a 200mm. And then again, it came with 50mm with aperture 1.8, which 1.8 is good. It's pretty good, really good. And then a 28mm, and it says it has an aperture 2.8, which is still good. Anything lower than 3 is pretty good. One aperture of like 1.2, 1.4, 1.8 is phenomenal. But a lot of times the more narrow the view angle is, which is the more zoom the lens has, the aperture usually goes up from 2.8. It can go all the way up to 8. An aperture, an f-stop of 8, which is not ideal. And so more inexpensive telephoto lenses, they will, like, well, a zoom lens, so they have the different focal lengths where you can start out with a medium or a wide angle, and then you can, twist the lens and it zooms in. And so when it's at its widest, it will be an aperture of like 3.5, which is okay. It's usable. It doesn't have that much of a depth of field, but then when you zoom in, it will go to like an aperture of 6 or 6.3, which doesn't have that much of a depth of field. But because you're zooming and getting the zooms, it will actually there's more of a separation of subject and background. So if you're taking a picture of someone zoomed in, that's far away, yes, the depth of field will be wider, where you will have their whole body in focus, but if the background is far away, it will be more out of focus. And so that's why a lot of portrait photographers will use more of a zoom lens than a wide angle lens. And zoom lenses also take away kind of distortion, so it is a flatter, more even image. So the person is more uniform. It doesn't exaggerate some areas of the body or the face. It gets rid of a little bit of perspective. It's more straight on perspective, and it's easier to frame things because you're in more control of what's in the background, what's in the photo. But again, like I said, you want a lens with a high speed, so an aperture 1.2, 1.4, and the portrait photographer is kind of a standard is the 50mm 1.2, 1.4, 1.8. But once you start doing a lot of portrait photography and making money, you want to upgrade to an 80mm, and they actually make an 80mm lens with an aperture of 1.8, 1.4, and that is phenomenal. Like the 80mm 1.4 is a classic portrait lens. It also is very expensive, like 300 to 400. Anything with a low aperture really starts at like 250. So that's why I use mainly vintage lens, things I find at yard sales and stuff, because I can't afford like current gen. But the downside is they're all manual, and so like I said, my eyes were better. It's easier to focus on things through the eyepiece, but I just wanted to take photos faster, because now that my eyes I have astigmatism, so it's difficult to focus on through the camera lens. And so instead of spending all this time focusing, I wanted to do faster shots, especially when I'm, traveling through a city and taking photos as fast as I can. And so that's why I bought my sister's 55mm lens, even though I already had one, because it had autofocus. And it is so nice having autofocus with a camera where, half a twist, a centimeter of a twist of the focus will wildly throw the image out of focus or focus on the wrong thing. But there is a trick with Canon and Nikon. They have this thing called, Canon calls it live view, where it will actually open up the shutter and you can see not through the eyepiece, but you can see through the LCD screen, and then you can digitally zoom in, and it's best if you do it while the camera's on a tripod, or you have to hold really still. But you digitally zoom in and then you focus on exactly what you want, and that allows you to get the focus exact, and then you take the picture. And so I do that a lot with my super telephoto lens. I have a 500mm lens, which you can't handhold that. It's about 2.5 feet long. No, it's about 1.5 feet long, and it's literally about from an elbow to the tip of your finger. It's that long, and it's a very inexpensive lens. For my birthday, I got a $100 gift certificate to Amazon, and I found this lens. It was $500, and it came with a teleconverter, which I have mixed feelings about a teleconverter. But so it could be 500mm, or you put the teleconverter on, and then it's 1000mm. Now it's originally, when I was about 11 or 12, I saw this lens, and it was about 300, and I was like, this will be awesome. I can do so much wildlife photography and everything. But they were, for a 12-year-old, 300's a lot of money. And so I was just like, and so this is actually the same lens, but it was about $70. And so I was like, yes, please. So I ordered the lens, and then I ordered filters for it, because it's the lens diameter is different from all the lenses I have. And so it's a very inexpensive telephoto lens, because the f-stop, the speed of the lens is so narrow that the f-stop is f8, which, and like what I told you, f 1.2, 1.8 is really good. f8 is like, it's kind of terrible. It means that the aperture of the lens is very small, so images have to be what you have to be taking pictures of have to be extremely bright, so the lens doesn't even work well in cloudy outdoor weather. It really has to be super bright and sunny. Like, you can't take photos in the shade, which is okay for wildlife. And I knew what I was getting into when I got the lens, because any lens that's $80 and 500 millimeters it's kind of like a toy lens. It's just something you experiment with. But I was like, you know what? My motto is that it's better to get a photograph than get no photograph. And what I'd like to do is I work very hard to get, as much quality as I can out of any camera that I have. It doesn't matter if it's, a discount camera, a used camera, or the lenses are terrible. That's part of the process of working with art is, you juice as much detail out of everything you use to the max. And so it does matter what equipment you use, but not as much as you think. I believe this is going to be our last project we edit. I foolishly thought we would be able to edit the entire GoPro series, and that was because I was lulled into a false sense of security with the JVC video files, because those were like 15-minute projects. But like, as you can see, we're already up to 45 minutes of footage that we have edited, and all the GoPro 3D files are like that, where it's a ton of footage. And I got places to go. I have to go to the hardware store to get some parts. My mom and I found this new auction house locally, and they have some good stuff. And so every week there's an auction. And so there's this chainsaw we're hoping to get. They have 3 gas-powered ones. It's like a 14-inch, 18-inch, and a 24-inch. So we're hoping to get the 24-inch, and then I got a lot of work to do. Things I have to, chainsaw. And slice and dice. So hopefully that happens. Because we've been trying to get a chainsaw for a while. No, I have. My mom doesn't quite trust me with a chainsaw. And I'm like, you know what? You should trust me. It's like, I do all kinds of stuff. I make special modifications to lawnmowers. I work with material collection units, which is a fancy word for a vacuum. Our lawnmower has this attachment that you install, where it's not just a lot of Lemurs have this thing where you can put the bags on the back and it will just throw the stuff in there naturally. But we have this extra attachment, which is actually a vacuum, and so it will actually suck things under the lawnmower and then shoot it into the bags. And it's really good for leaf collection because it will suck up leaves so fast. Like a lot of where I live is forested, so when fall comes, it's intense. It's maybe 3 inches of leaves, and so it has 2 bags in the back, and it will fill the bags up if just going 5 or 6 feet. And so it's really helpful because I bag it and then I throw it into a compost pile. Getting close to the end. That actually worked out really well because my goal is to do 2-hour streams minimum, 2 or 3 hour streams. And oh my goodness, with Reach on Legendary, it is, I only do 2 levels, where before on Heroic and Normal and Easy I could do 3 levels in 2 hours. But with Legendary, I can only do 2 within that 2-hour limit, and it goes over. It goes to 2 hours and 30, 2 hours and 40 minutes. But it's really intense, but it's a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Like, I thought I'd be sweating buckets, but mainly it's just you have to get really. It's more like playing chess, actually, where you have to plan each area and how you're gonna attack and all that stuff. And it's funny because I'm playing on Legendary, which I never thought I'd be able to do, because I am the worst Halo player ever. Like, I love Halo so much, but I cannot play the game. Like, I normally only play it on easy. When I had it Halo for the Mac, I did do Legendary and stuff on the PC, but just with controllers I'm terrible. And so it's funny because, like, now I'm passable. Like, when I played with my friends, we would have the LAN party, and then I'd be playing, and I never got, my score almost never went to 1. Like, most of the time it would go to negative 2 or something. Like, if I got the game, if I played the game and it ended with me having a score of 0 or 1, that was a good game for me. Because sometimes I would just fall off the map, I'd throw a grenade and it would hit myself and then I'd die. So each time, you die because it's your fault, Halo will give you a negative kill. And a lot of times they say, when you die, they say you committed suicide. And it's like, So that's how I was at Halo. But things have changed. And like I said, Legendary, I was terrified of Legendary. but it's going along pretty well. It's funny, the other thing I think about is like the level design. Like a lot of Bungie games, actually they reuse geometry a lot, and environmental geometry. So a lot of the buildings and stuff you go through it's kind of like they designed it so well where it's like you come in one area and then part of the area is actually the exact same geometry, but it's in reverse or it's from a different angle, or you have to go through a different way. So it's the same, building, but it feels, really large and everything, and it feels more dynamic. And a lot of that is because to save space on the disc. Because what a lot of people don't realize is Halo 1, and especially Halo 1 for the Mac, it wasn't on DVD, it was on CD. So it had to be under 750 megabytes, not even a gigabyte. Because back in the day, in the 2000s, there was no it was rare for somebody to have a DVD player in their PC. And it's funny because nowadays, like the Master Chief Collection, it's 100 gig download, and it didn't start off that way. Before it was 50 gigs, and it ballooned up as time went on. Okay, so we clipped everything, and we're gonna save the color grade for next time. We're going to see how long this thing is, and the color grading is going to be more intense, and part of that is because the GoPro does an auto white balance, and even though it's good, like it's really good, sometimes we have to correct it, and so each clip has a slightly different white balance, so we have to do a lot more custom color grades for each clip. I mean, we're able to do, some clips can share the same color grade, but there's a lot more that has to be unique. And like I said, we're trying to keep this 2 hours, and it's an hour and 56 minutes, so we don't have time to do the full color grade. But I want to thank everyone for coming out. Tomorrow is Halo Reach. We are continuing on Legendary. We are at a long night of Solace, and according to my calculations, we should finish Reach on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday we're gonna start Halo CE on Easy, and then we're gonna continue on. We do Halo on the weekdays. And so for the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing Halos. From Thursday, we're going to be doing Halo CE, Halo 1 on Easy, Normal, Heroic, then Legendary. So it's going to be a while. But we're very close to finishing Halo Reach. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I see everyone tomorrow for Halo. Bye-bye.